Speed UTV, where is it at? Is it coming soon? What are the concerns? How's it going to stack up compared to the new Polaris RZRs? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Nick Olson, Chupacabra Offroad, and it's been such a long time since we've done a speed video. Almost 10 months ago to be exact. Sand Show 2021 back in Orange County, and I'm getting excited. I think we're getting close. I think we're going to see these things maybe before the end of the year. But to go back to that last video that we did, you know, the team at Speed showed up with 4 pre-production cars. If you guys remember, if not, you can check the video. It's in the link here in our description. But either way, Speed showed up. They had some prototype cars. I think one of them ran. They were definitely a little rough around the edges. They had something to show us all, but the doors didn't open very well. There was a couple other changes and challenges that they had to make. Some of the welds, a lot of people called out being poor quality, those type of things. And after that event, the Speed team said they recognized about 300 things they needed to change, address, upgrade before it went into production. So here we are almost 10 months later, and I think they've made a lot of progress. I think we're getting close, and want to talk about some of the changes and updates that they've made and where we're at. So one thing that I love about the whole team at Speed is their transparency. They've been sharing some of their highs and lows along the process. So fast forward from the Sand Show, they start testing the vehicles even more, some of these pre-production cars, sharing with us like some of the issues they've had, a couple of those where some of the feedback of the steering rack, which more recently got updated where they altered the design to get rid of that feedback and the feel that Robbie said he didn't really approve of. Nice little beefier upgrade than what we even thought we were gonna get. So it's cool to see that type of thing where I feel like they're focusing on doing the right thing, meaning let's upgrade, let's give the customer maybe more than what we thought we're gonna give them because we want this thing to be right. We're taking our time. We know what right feels like. We're relying on our experience, our engineering team, etc. Let's take a deep breath. Let's make sure that we get all these things ironed out. And this is a very important part of the process that, yes, if you're like me, you're probably getting pretty impatient, but also we want this thing to be right. We're excited about it. We think it could be the Holy Grail. So at the Sand Show, the doors didn't open and close too well. They showed us how they worked through that, how they had to change the whole setup with some of the latches and the fixturing to get that to work right. These type of things they've been able to work through. They even showed us when they're out testing that one of their clutches came apart because it was a simple installation process that needed to be updated. So cool to see them sharing those types of things. It's naturally expected that they're going to hit some bumps in the road, but as they've kind of progressed, it seems like things are getting more dialed. The most recent pre-production vehicles have been on the road. I think one of those same exact vehicles from the Sand Show has been going on to a lot of the dealers here on the West Coast. A lot of people have been able to sit in it, touch it, feel it, check it out, and see all the process improvements they've made as we get close here to getting the production run out in customers' hands. So they're heading down the track trying to get closer to production in the middle of what might be the most challenging environment. Trust me, I speak from experience in terms of supply chain, setbacks, just the way the world right now in a post-COVID era. Got to be incredibly difficult there for the team, particularly as we get into some of these QC type of things where they're leaning on the vendors to get some of these parts made, double checking and testing the QC to fit and finish, and then even the timelines of getting that stuff for them to even test, let alone for building all these parts for these consumer machines. So I can only imagine how difficult that is being in the same industry and working on a much smaller and simpler scale. So lots happened since the Sand Show. Not long after that, Polaris goes ahead and launches their new product offering, which is several new models, including the new Turbo R and Pro R. Now, these vehicles are much improved. Polaris is top of the game in terms of total units sold. Obviously, they're what we look to in terms of the North Star, who's been leading the industry and who would continue to lead. And both of the vehicles are very impressive. I did get to spend a little bit of time driving both of them, but they've been out in customers' hands now for a while, particularly the Pro R. So it's cool to see now that we've got 6 or 8 months of everyday customers buying them, using them, abusing them, seeing what the strengths are, seeing what some of the potential weaknesses are. And as a whole, Polaris did a great job. They definitely beefed up the structure of the vehicle, from the chassis, the suspension, the brakes, all those type of things, which you've documented here on some of the videos on the YouTube channel. But they definitely stepped up the game in terms of the industry as a whole. And for sure, right now, at this moment in time, the Pro R is the top dog. Yes, it's 2,000 cc's. You would expect it to be. It's got a premium price point, but Polaris has now kind of thrown a little bit of a curveball, where when the Speed was first announced, when I first started doing these videos back during COVID in 2020, right, the landscape looked a little bit different, and it continually evolves, and who knows, Can-Am could be up next. They could keep what they've got right now because they're also having a hard time just shipping parts for vehicles. They could launch something new. Can-Am is very good at keeping their cards close to their chest. We don't know what we're going to expect, maybe just some revamps and some addressing some of the weak points of the X3. That could come to fruition here pretty soon. Who knows? But this is the hard part of when you're working on a car. I think the Speed team had to be transparent. But the same token, 1 year is a long time in the UTV world if it ends up being delayed further than what they hoped. It kind of reminds me back when the YXZ was first released. Now, the YXZ, if you guys recall, was Yamaha's first sport side-by-side, and by the time it was released, it was about 6 months, honestly 12 months late, because at that point Can-Am had a turbo model and then Polaris had launched a turbo Razor. So my opinion, had the YXZ dropped a year sooner when it was going up against the naturally aspirated vehicles, I think it would have picked up a lot more market share, potentially had a lot more momentum for Yamaha as a brand. We kind of all know what happened. It fizzled out. It had some shortcomings. It never really, took over market share like we thought a Japanese OEM, particularly Yamaha, would, who's kind of, credited for starting this whole industry. But all I'm trying to say is that timing is important. The sport moves fast. If Can-Am does have something new coming soon, it puts that much more pressure on Speed when we've already seen their playbook. We've seen exactly what the vehicle is going to be. Now we just want to get it to market in the customer's hands. So as I'm sure you're aware, a lot's happened in the last year, and we can't talk about what's happened in the last year without talking about price increases and also some of the changes that have happened in the marketplace, and now how, if you're a new potential consumer looking at a new vehicle, how this pricing all stacks up, because it's important that we kind of think about these things even from a price perspective. I mean, a lot of us are maybe attached to one OEM or one vehicle over another for various reasons, but price is a big part of it. Prices have changed quite a bit, so I have some notes here I just kind of want to go over. Now, to compare apples to apples, I'm going to talk about four-seaters for this video. Speed, most of the vehicles they've sold have been the four-seat El Jefe. If you guys watch the channel, you're like me, you're a four-seat guy, you've got kids, you like a longer wheelbase. Works great for the Southwest. So apples to apples, let's start off with the Polaris Turbo R. The base model that they offer here with Walker Evans shocks retails for $31,999. Now, this is a replacement for what the Turbo S was. This is more of a, what you call your value play now in the 72, 74, 77-inch wide offering here for four-seat models. And that one goes all up to $39,599 for the top of the line Ultimate, which has Fox Live Valve suspension and a few other bells and whistles. Now, if you want to bump up to the Pro R 4-cylinder, you're starting off at $38,599 on the base model, again, Walker Evans shock. And that goes all the way up to $44,499 for the Ultimate Fox Live Valve tuned vehicle, their highest end offering. So $45,000 at the high end of the market here for Polaris in 2022. So I kind of want to compare both of those Polaris to a Speed. They're both similar and different for similar reasons, but it's a four-seat UTV. You're talking about a Southwest car, and they're all similar price point, but it is about a $6,500 upgrade to go from a Turbo R to a Pro R. And as we compare that to the Speed's prices unfortunately have gone up as well. A base model El Jefe is now $34,500. The LE model, which is one that I purchased, is $41,000, and moving all the way up to the RG edition El Jefe, it's $45,500. So yes, this is about $500 more than a Pro R Ultimate top tier edition from Polaris. So if you're like me, you're probably thinking, geez, what has happened in the last year of the sport to have the top dog model has gone up significantly? If you're lucky like me, you bought your Speed back in 2020, I purchased my LE for $32,000. So that vehicle alone has seen a 34% price increase since I first bought it, which is, over to, I want to say April to put my deposit down. So, I mean, obviously over 2 years, but a lot has happened. As you guys have seen, the cost of everything is pretty damn expensive right now in July of 2022. So when you look at that and you look at the Can-Am's current offerings, their Can-Am Max, the base model, starts off at $27,499. It almost looks and feels like a steal, and considering their top tier Smart Shock version is $34,099. The Can-Ams look far less expensive than the Speed and Polaris at this point. Now the X3 is less expensive, but I'm going through the process of upgrading my two-seat X3. There's a lot of extra money you have to spend to beef these things up. So looking at the landscape, I really feel like the Turbo R 4-seater base model at 32K, it's got a 125-inch wheelbase. Looks to be standing out as a pretty good value given this new landscape of 4-seat side-by-sides. All right, so the million-dollar question is, all right, Nick, yeah, the Speed this, the Speed that, but when's it actually going to be in customers' hands? There's been a lot of talk back and forth, a lot of people busting each other's chops about it. Nobody knows. I don't have any secret insider information. I'm just following along, you know, listening to people talk, people actually know what they're talking about. Most importantly, listen to the team at Speed. And very recently, Todd Romano has been saying that their #1 goal is to have some consumer cars at the SAN show here in about 60 days. So, you know, there's a lot of people that think there's no way that's gonna happen. I'm hopeful that it will. Honestly, I feel like where we're at the process, looking at all these videos, that I feel like I'm gonna have my car before the end of the year, around Christmas time, and I'm in the first batch of the first couple hundred cars. So that's very different than if you are master number 2,000, 3,000. Who knows when that can be? There could be a lot of challenges that happen between now and then. Them simply just being able to get enough parts to do all of that. And then also the bigger question, if they can get a couple cars, let's say 30 cars to 100 cars, which were Todd's words, do they have enough parts at that point to then get the assembly line going and crank out as many cars per day as they had hoped? Or will they try to get a few out there and then do what they can to keep getting these parts and get these vehicles out as quickly as they can? Definitely remains to be seen, but I feel like if I was them, I'd want to get some vehicles out, then you kind of silence a lot of the haters. You get the vehicles in some consumers' hands and then you work through it. But you know, there's a lot that goes into that, and hopefully the parts have been stacking up and being built so that when they do get the production line going, they can really start cranking like they say they're going to. So let's say I get my car at the beginning of this desert season. It's going to be awesome, particularly if you look at the price I bought in at. We did another video, which we'll link below in the description, which talked about the accessories and upgrades I did to my vehicle. So right about now, I'm sitting at about $41,000, $42,000. And once I pick my car up, all I really should need to do, of course, are going to throw on my Chupacabra accessories and some Baja Designs lights, and I should be dialed. I mean, I'm talking heated seats, full windshield, of course a roof, rear storage boxes, you know, B-lock wheels, a trail kit with the jack, an extra axle, oil change kit. I got all the basics, of course the PCI intercom, all these type of things where my Speed should be dialed and ready to go. On top of the LE edition having, of course, B-lock wheels, having good tires, having, you know, real harnesses, carbon fiber seats, all that type of thing. So 41K now almost seems like an amazing deal to have that vehicle with all those accessories. The only thing I've really changed since that video is a new digital package that they announced for $1,500. Now, this is going to include a belt tep sensor. It's going to also include front and rear cameras, and it's going to be all wired up for dome lights. And I thought that'd be cool for content for you guys. You know, I'm going to be doing, of course, a ton of content. I'll be one of the first people to own a Speed, so it'll be good to relay what the belt temp's actually doing in real life. And I thought that was going to be nice to have that little digital package all wired up, because I don't want to deal with it in the future. One more cool element of this little digital package is it also has Bluetooth sensors for the tires. So I'll have my tire pressure right on my dash, and Robbie just showed something on his Instagram where he can screen mirror off of a phone, so he's showing one of the Speed UTV presentations right on the dash of the vehicle. So this thing has some pretty cool bells and whistles that you know, I smile, but as a Speed UTV guy, I've been waiting for a long time, so it's gonna be cool to kind of one up the competition, have some nice little tricks that no other cars have. All right, so wrapping this video up, what are some potential concerns that I would have as a future Speed owner? What I'd like to see more out of, maybe on their videos? What do I think about is most concerning as I'm taking the plunge into buying a new vehicle from a brand new manufacturer? So, you know, first off, I love the wheelbase at 120 inches. I think it's damn near perfect for a 4-seat vehicle. I do think that the chassis suspension is going to be the best on the market. I think the Pro R is very, very good. It's much beefier than it ever has been, but there was a recent video Shock Therapy put out which was really good, and it talked about the bump steer and the overall geometry of the Pro R. And it did say that the bump steer was good. It was very mitigated, very small, you know, for how much travel it puts out, but it also showed the track width change of the vehicle from full droop to ride height to full bump, and that fluctuated by 12 to 13 inches, which was pretty wild considering the speed's gonna move no more than an inch or half an inch, I believe. So I do think because of Robbie's patents on the suspension, it's going to be the best handling. Hopefully you can feel that type of stuff. I'm assuming it's gonna track really well through the whoops, and I think it's also gonna put a lot less pressure on wheel bearings and hubs, that type of thing, and there's no radius rods to bend or break. So I think there's a lot of value by having the correct geometry and hopefully less headaches in the future compared to what some of the other OEMs you have to deal with, which everybody's seen broken and bent radius rods, things of that nature, just because the geometry isn't as good as it could be because the speed is probably the most evolved on the market. So while I don't really have a concern about any of the structure or the most important elements, I do have some concerns about how well it's going to rock crawl. Now, I'm not a big rock crawling guy, but I like to do it every once in a while. It is very intimidating for me, especially when it feels like it's an all new sport, and I haven't seen a lot of videos or content of those guys really crawling, so I hope the low range and the front differential works well. I mean, I think Polaris for sure sets the standard with how their front diff works. I mean, I went to Rally on the Rocks in Moab, and very few people even have Can-Ams. The Polaris 4-seater kind of rules the roost. It's such an intuitive vehicle. When you want to get down on the rocks, you want to try and challenge yourself. The wheelbase is perfect, the way the front diff, everything works. It's just an exceptional product. So I'm hoping that the speed does well on the rocks. I need a lot of confidence in those scenarios, so I hope the throttle control modulates really smooth. When I was out on this trip, I had my Can-Am and it was horrible on the rocks. It gave me no confidence. The power was really touchy. I'm gonna try a couple things to mitigate that, maybe with the valet key or the low speed key, what I can do to kind of calm the throttle response when I'm trying to just really focus to hit some lines and keep from going on my side or upside down on trails like Double Sandy and Sand Hollow. Another concern that has been brought up a couple times is going to be how warm the vehicle gets when you're driving in warm conditions with the windshield. So I'm a huge fan of glass windshields and use mine pretty much all the time. I very seldom take it off. I took it off last summer in Moab because it wasn't overly hot. It was 85-ish degrees, but when you're going a couple miles an hour and getting no airflow, it really was, it got uncomfortable quick. So to use this as an example, right after that trip, I did go to Baja and led a 500-mile pre-run with a couple of my buddies on the Baja 500 course. Now, I ran without a windshield and it was awesome. It was awesome because I was up front. So Robbie, a couple times they've commented, Todd, they've said around 85 degrees with the windshield, the vehicle starts to get hot. Now keep in mind the Speed has the radiators in the back, not the front, like all the other side-by-sides on the market. So getting back to the Baja trip, you know, the first day we're going to Valle de Trinidad, I mean, it gets around 100 degrees there, and then we went back to the coast. So, you know, if I'm doing a 500-mile trip like that, I'd love to have my windshield on, particularly if I'm not leading the ride, if I'm riding in the middle or the back of the pack. And it'd be a little nerve-wracking if the vehicle got too hot and started to get to overheat scenario, particularly in Baja, particularly if it's over 85, 90, 95 degrees, which is pretty common, you know, when you're in the Southwest. Like, you can start off with the best intentions and you could have a slowdown, you could have a trail fix, and all of a sudden you wanted to get through this one area at this time, and all of a sudden it's 20 degrees hotter or just a hotter day than you anticipated. You book a Baja trip or an adventure like that a couple months in advance. You think the weather's gonna be nice, and it ends up being hot. I've had all those scenarios happen. So, you know, I just don't want to be worried about it and worried about, do I have to take my windshield off for this ride, you know? So I love the windshield for how much dust it keeps out of my eyes, on top of, you know, how well it works, of course, when it's cool. So I'm a big fan of it. I hope I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to worry about it, but I haven't seen them have a lot of confidence as they're describing it, and I think we're just gonna have to see how it is out in the real world. And my final concern really is just something that is, you know, out of our customers' hands, but that's the overall manufacturing, assembly, and QC process. They said there's over 28,000 parts on this vehicle. I know they're doing their due diligence. Robbie's been over in Asia double checking everything, and they've spent all this time testing and all these type of things, but there's just so many little things that could potentially happen that might even be out of their control, and they've just got to go through all these parts with a fine-tooth comb and make sure there aren't any changes after they give an approval to how it actually rolls off the assembly line. And with me being in the first batch, it's a little more nerve-wracking. All of you guys that are master number 2000 and beyond, it's probably gonna make you sleep a little bit easier at night, knowing that if they do have any challenges, they'll get them ironed out, because I'm sure they're just gonna improve and learn as the assembly line rolls on. So, you know, after working for Polaris right after the XP1000 release, and it was as simple as how a drive shaft was input off a couple splines, led to a front end vibration, which led into people complaining about front end vibrations for years on those vehicles. It's hard to tell what the exact culprit was, but you know, you hope they don't have any setbacks like that. But it just seems like if companies like Polaris experienced that. With these guys being new, these challenges might arise. So, that's just kind of a concern from an owner perspective, and hopefully nothing that ultimately leads to me having an experience where I'm dead on the trail. That could always happen with any machine, but it is in the back of my mind, being that it is a new startup company. So that's the latest. I know a lot of you guys on the channel are also speed owners or soon to be speed owners. Comment below if you think that they'll show up to Sand Show with some cars, or if not then, by the end of the year. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any other concerns below that you're on board with speed like myself, but there's something that they might not have addressed, kind of like some of the stuff I brought up, that you'd like to either hear and learn more about. Thanks always, guys, for supporting us on the channel, supporting our business. ChupacabraOffroad.com. Of course, we have a lot of options for all you side-by-side owners. Check out our products. Love the support. We'll see you on the next one.